Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Santa Rita Union School District Board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we can please start off with the roll call.
Mr. Neil Patel.
Present.
Ms. Alvariano.
Present.
Ms. Sarah Turner.
Present.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Present.
Ms. Cindy Lopez is not present this evening.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to the board agenda.
Mr. President, I need to ask for us to revise personnel consent agenda item 5.3 by removing employee 125081 from that action for this evening.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve as amended?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, today on closed session items, we have item 2.1, potential litigation, 2.2, public employee performance evaluation, 2.3, conference with labor negotiators. Is there any public comments regarding closed session items?
There are not.
Can I get a motion to adjourn the closed session, please?
So motion. So motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you everybody
4-0.
afterwards. Okay, we're gonna get ready. Give me a countdown, please. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to reconvene back into open session. Nothing was voted on in closed session, so there's nothing to report out. We're going to move on to the consent agenda items. Can I get a motion to approve items 5.1 to 5.3, please?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Captain.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to move on to reports and correspondence. 6.1, is there anybody here from SRTA or any comments that were submitted?
Not from SRTA.
Okay. CSEA?
I love it here.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Alderman, and district administration. My name is Juana Casillas, and I'm the chapter president of the Santa Rita Union School District, chapter of the California School Employee Association. In accordance with Section 3547 of the Government Code, I'm here to formally present and submit CSEA's initial sunshine proposal for negotiations with the district for the upcoming successor negotiations 2025 through 2028. The CSEA is committed to engaging in fair, transparent, and productive discussions to reach mutually beneficial agreements that will enhance the working conditions of classified employees and support the success of all students. Our goal is to work collaboratively and transparently with the district to ensure a fair and equitable agreement that reflects the hard work and dedication of our classified staff, who are essential to the success of our students and schools. The CSEA looks forward to a collaborative process with the district negotiation team. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Superintendent's Cabinet.
Okay. Here with us this evening's Director of Nutritional Services, Chuck Helm. Did you have anything?
Yeah, just real quick. I did a director's orientation with the Chef Ann Foundation today. I have an agenda item on there with the Chef Ann as well, but just some key things to take out of that. We had 8 of our internal staff sign on. We had 1 external, so it's coming mid to late October. We'll get started on that.
Our Chief Business Officer, Ms. Rosa Zamudio, did you have anything?
Good evening. I just want to mention that we finally closed the books for the districts and for the district and have a presentation coming up.
Okay. And then we have our Director of Engagement and School Climate, Dr. Summer Prather-Smith.
I have a whole list. I'm going to have Gilbert queue up just a second. I'll do a couple of the other ones before we get there. First, just a reminder to everybody, we have our community town hall coming up on October 1st at JGMS from 5:30 to 7:30. I've been really excited to be planning with the team from Building Healthy Communities. We're really going to have an opportunity to highlight the work we're doing in the district through a poster activity, and then lots of opportunities for small group discussion. Migrant education as well as Centro Binacional will be there to support with interpretation and supporting in those small group conversations as well. So we'll have food and childcare available for everybody as well. Our first Saturday of this year sessions start this Saturday at Santa Rita Elementary and at Gavilan View Middle School. Our enrollment is a little lower than I would like it to be. So we're continuing to enroll students. We have about 90 students enrolled in our elementary program and around 50 students enrolled in our middle school program. We usually have about 35 more than that for this first session. So we've been doing some targeted recruitment. We sent out the students who have at least 1 absence because we can use this for ADA recovery, and our amazing office teams have been reaching out to families to get them enrolled as well. McCate program started at our middle schools this past week before last. So we're excited to see some of that production coming forward from McCate, working with our middle school students. Next week is Parent-Teacher Conference Week, so remember that it's minimum days, and to all of our families to also just remember that this is an important opportunity to connect with your child's teacher. On a kind of sad announcement, the swimming that we had planned for Saturdays is on hold because the pool broke. And so right now that facility is closed until the city is able to fund the repairs. So I just want to reassure our families that did sign up for swimming, as soon as the repairs are complete, we will be implementing those again. And we'll keep everybody posted as well. I want to thank Councilmember Aurelio Salazar and then Jose Ariola with the City of Salinas. They came out this week to meet with us at McKinnon to walk the space and have some real collaborative conversations. I was really excited to see crossing support across McKinnon or across Baranda after we had that conversation. And then they have also put up caution tape and cones along the walkway to help keep students away from that space. We were also able to confirm that our buses will have turning radius access beginning in November. And then the paved walkway from Dartmouth from Lowe's will be blacktopped and not dirt. So thank you to them. We continue to work directly to make sure that our students are safe as well. Okay. And then last, we finished filming our next campaign with KSBW. There's a little bit of information in this packet around what that will look like in terms of our 3-month enrollment. We really focused on our facilities upgrade, and we just want to show you the current draft version of that.
Across the Santa Rita Union School District, schools are getting new upgrades. All of our elementary schools have exciting new playgrounds. At New Republic and McKinnon, new shade structures mean safer spaces to play. Santa Rita Elementary has new restrooms, and La Jolla will receive their upgrade this winter. At Gavilan View, 11 new classrooms and a flex lab are on the way. And this fall, John Gutierrez Middle will open 6 new classrooms. Santa Rita Union School District is creating lasting spaces where students learn and grow.
So that campaign will start. I know it turned out really nice. That campaign will start. The kids were really excited. They're like, when's it going to be on TV? And I was like, it's going to be on TV all the time for 3 months. So that campaign will start October 1st and will run October, November, and December. And then our goal would be after that to look at probably our after school and Saturday programming for our next campaign. I think that's everything on my list.
Questions or comments from the board?
Thank you for everything you do, obviously. Going back to the traffic mitigation that the city came in with, I understand tomorrow they're going to be shifting over to the temporary lights. And do you have any time frame of how long of those will take? Because I'm just imagining way more traffic jam with that, because I don't think they're radar based, are they? Or are they time based?
They're time based. One of the pieces that's kind of beneficial, not great for traffic, but great for our pedestrians, is that they'll also have like a temporary crossing sign. When that's pushed, it stops all 4 lights. So there'll be no traffic going. Not great for traffic, but better for our walkers. Right now, what they're looking at, those are going to start, but the intersection that they originally thought would be closed in October, it looks like it'll be more like November. So for everything, we're looking at like March, April before kind of everything is back to a real functioning space.
We're looking at around 5 months
at least
of temporary lights, because that is one of the major thoroughfares, to
Yeah.
get to East Salinas from.
Yes. And we were very clear about it. And we talked about the positioning of that. And again, we talked about how essential that crossing support was going to be. The other part is come November, when that other work starts, that whole section is going to go down to 2 lanes, 1
Yeah.
lane in each direction.
No, thank you. My main concern was for safety
Yeah.
for our pedestrians,
Yeah.
our students crossing safely. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you
We were
very
excited
much.
to see them out there.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Sir.
Just in regards to the ad, which I loved, is there a way that we can put like a banner or something that says like, thank you, Measure Our Voters into it, just to be able to get that out there directly?
Oh, that's a good catch. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just shared that with us earlier today. So we're like, let's just,
I appreciate that.
I
No, let's-
want
let's
people to
do
see
the-
what we're
yeah.
doing with their money.
Yeah. For the town hall meeting, what's kind of the structure and then the kind of the goals that's hoping to kind of get taken out of?
Yeah. So it will start with just kind of a soft opening. There will be, like I said, an opportunity to talk about the spectrum of engagement. Families will have an opportunity, rather than taking the time with us talking, like I said, we're creating a poster activity that shows what we're already doing. Families will have the option to kind of go through those posters, note what they see, what they haven't seen in effect in the district. Then there'll be a series of questions around what's working, where there's challenges, what families want to see more of, and they'll be put into small groups with a scribe and a facilitator to help facilitate that conversation. They will then have the opportunity to share out around what's working, where they'd like to see change. change. And then we'll put some action steps as to what we could put into place and what we'll be working on before the next town hall meeting. The next town hall meeting, we're looking at December 2nd or 4th, I think is what it is. We're going to confirm those dates. So really much more around giving opportunity for collaboration and the community to come together versus kind of just somebody standing up there talking.
Appreciate it. When the groups get split up into smaller, you're going to have translation, right? Is there
They're
gonna
going to be in language specific groups.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Okay, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
so we'll have them.
No, definitely excited to
Yeah.
kind of see what comes out of it and then kind of what the next steps are as
Yeah,
well. So.
yeah. And our planning, what we really talked about is we want to give the participants an opportunity to interact with each other as well and to share ideas. A lot of times that kind of larger forum can be intimidating for a lot of families, but those conversations that can happen at a table can really spur ideas. And so we wanted to make sure we provided that time for families as well. And then from the outcomes of that, we'll determine kind of where we focus in the start of our next town hall.
Okay.
And then, sorry, again, the way it'll go, New Republic will be the next one in December. And then we'll go like February-ish at Santa Rita. And then we'll go at the end April-ish here and end with Gavilan View for the 4 quarters.
And the way they're being advertised, is it, because I know they're going different, is it like you're only advertising anybody from the whole district can come, or is it by area?
Everybody's,
Okay.
yeah. And Building Healthy Communities as well as Centro are advertising. They have their community workers also handing out flyers
Okay,
and
that was my
distributing
next question.
information. And then it's also being sent through their social medias. So it's going out across
Okay.
multiple. Mhm.
Okay, perfect. That was all my questions. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay. And then we have Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, Ms. Becky Moore.
Thank you. I also have a list because it has been incredibly busy. I'm happy to report that our initial LPAC is definitely more than 95% complete, probably closer to 100% at this point. So we have that data and ready to go. The embargoed dashboard preview has been shared with district leads. I took a look at it and it does match very closely to what we previewed when we did our board workshop. And so that's good to know where we stand. For math, we've had our partner from Eureka Math Squared at 4 of our sites so far, along with me, the principal, assistant principals as available, and academic coaches to visit classrooms for guided observations for instructional leaders, helping us to analyze, is the curriculum being implemented as it is intended in order to maximize the results we get from instruction, and also checking in on the pacing to make sure that we are moving through in a way that's going to ensure students get access to their grade level standards throughout the year and don't run out of days to do so. We had our first Teacher Leadership Academy, so our grade level reps and subject area reps came together with principals, academic coaches, and some of our leaders, really dug into what is a teacher leader, what does it mean to be a teacher leader, and beginning to get into the work of PLC Plus and what does an activator do in those meetings, what data and different types of data can be used to analyze student success. That was an exciting start. Our next one will be held in October. We did our launch session for 2 days for instructional rounds. This year we'll have 4 schools participating in it's a deeper level type of learning walk where each school is individually determining what their problem of practice is, where they want us to look and gather evidence from classrooms to support next steps to address those issues. And so I was not able to get every school site to do that this year because of my, like the commitment on my time. I couldn't make it work. But we have both middle schools, Santa Rita and New Republic participating this year. And then next year, my goal is for all 6 schools to do that. The learning walks, I still haven't scheduled. I need to get to the calendar and do that, but I haven't had a lot of time in my office. We had on Monday a follow-up for the coaching PD that we had brought in September. We had done 2 days on the impact cycle with a representative or a consultant from the instructional coaching group. That was really powerful. The coaches said it is the most impactful training that they've had since they've been coaches. And so coming back to revisit that this Monday, they were able to share kind of where they are now in that instructional coaching cycle, what successes they've had, what questions they have, and get follow-up for support. So we're hoping to bring Brittany back at least one more time in the spring. And now that all those things are done, yesterday and today, I got to sit in my office and work on the list of state reports that are now coming up due. So we've got the UPK report was submitted. Rosa's assistant, Debbie Campbell, and I, along with Donna and her team, are working on the report for the LCR SET grant. That's the literacy grant at Santa Rita. We have the Title III grant coming up. It's due in a couple of weeks. And then we'll be working on the comprehensive school improvement grant for Santa Rita that will be due after that. And then it'll be time to get back to LCAP for mid-year reporting. And finally, also working with our directors to plan for the October 13th PD Day.
Perfect. Any questions, comments on the board?
Whenever you have the learning walks, can you let me know? So I went last year,
Yeah.
I participated, and I really enjoyed looking and seeing the children plus the teachers teaching. So can you let me know?
I will definitely get those dates. I know Melissa's been asking me so that she can put them on the calendar for all of you. I'm going to get to them as soon as I can to get them scheduled for all 6 schools.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to the board and the superintendent. We'll start with Mr. Neil Patel.
I just want to share a little bit of information. On Saturday, I woke up and got a phone call, and there was a shootings in East Salinas. And often I always pray that it's no one from the school I teach at. And then later on the day, I find out it's one of my own students that was shot and killed. I've had him for 3 years, and a great student. And I wish I could say it was my first death of one of my students over the 25 years teaching. It is not. I pray that it is the last. It's been a very difficult week at El Salle High School. But the one good thing that I always remind myself and to also my fellow teachers and fellow CSEA staff is that the reason we do what we do is not only to educate academics, but it's also to provide that emotional, cultural bridge that provides a safety net for our students. We are the ones who are trying to change behavior, change outcomes, change negativity into hope, into a proper future. And for that reason, I went back to work on Monday. And it was a tough day. A lot of sad people, a lot of sad situation, a lot of sad students being affected. But once again, it's a reminder to us of how important our jobs are. I don't care whether you're a school board member, administrator, CSEA staff, IT providers, or your teachers, is that we are the direct front line in trying to improve society. And it's in these times that it reminds us how important our jobs are. And so I pray for his family. I pray for our community. I pray for better outcomes. But knowing that prayer is not enough, it's our hard work that we do every day in education that tries to make a difference in society. So even though it's a sad moment, I hope it's a reaffirmation of who we are and what we do and the purpose we serve. And for me, once again, it's been a sad story. But ultimately, we stay for the hope. So I just say thank you to all the educational staff for what we do. We can't save everyone. We can do our best, but we keep on fighting for a better day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Alvariano.
I'm very sorry to hear about your student. I've been in a similar situation in the past, but my condolences, because I know having a student in your class and then all of a sudden not being there is a big emptiness in there. And with that, I have no other thing to report.
Ms. Sarah Turner?
I wanted to report, I've been continuing to talk about to the city about safety issues, just things in regards to broken sidewalks and other maintenance things in regards to our areas. And I still encourage people to, you know, let principals know, like, what these are conditions that our children have to walk through, and we want safe routes to school for all of our kids. And I wanted to thank the people at the city who've been really kind, and then also talking about other organizations that we partner with and make sure that the city's getting its money's worth in terms of, if we have contracts, we need them to be fulfilled. So it wasn't a way that I expected to be spending this academic year, but I just, walk in my Santa Rita neighborhood continually and seeing things, and then finding out, hey, the city has a report that got fixed 2 months ago, but it's still happening. So just diving into things like that. So please keep coming forward to the community with the issues, because our children and our families deserve safe neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything to report. Dr. Alderman?
I'm just going to hold because I have a presentation to give in a little bit, but I was wondering, we've got a couple of information and discussion items and related to our sunshine proposals back and forth with CSEA, followed by another presentation if the board would be willing to entertain moving item 9.1 up to be directly after 8.3 so that it follows our sunshine in case anyone, I would love to have you stay, but just in case you can't, that way we can get the action item, if that's okay.
Okay, so just to clarify, it'd be 8.1, 8.2.
We would move 9.1 up to directly follow
8.3.
8.3, if that's okay.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. So move on to 8.1 is still the suggestion.
We can
Or
go ahead and
skip
do
it.
our public comments and then
Okay.
we'll do 8.1 as normal.
Okay. Any public comments regarding non-agenda items or agenda items?
They are not.
Okay. Moving on to 8.1, informational LCAP updates in COE approval.
Thank you. As attached is a slightly revised LCAP. After MCOE's review, they had caught a couple of errors where our initial, can't think of the word. Nope, baseline data, initial data points had somehow gotten changed, not sure how. So we got those corrected back to what they were meant to be. And then we needed to reflect our carryover into budget into the actions where that was going to be allocated. So that's been corrected. And we have our approval letter from MCOE. So everything is final for this year's LCAP.
And part of that is because of the change, right? As far as having carryover has to be money that's being spent.
Yes. So for instance, Krisha's team had ordered a bunch of new Chromebooks. There were delays in shipping. And so they didn't arrive until after the fiscal year closed. So that expenditure has to move to this fiscal year.
Any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay, so this is just an informational item. It doesn't have to get voted on or anything. 8.2, public hearing. At this time, it's 6:24. I'd like to open the public hearing regarding the disclosure of sunshine proposal from CSEA.
Thank you. I can report on that. CSEA has submitted their sunshine proposal, which is attached. I had it open. Here it is. Because the full contract is open this year, they are looking at opening most of their articles, as well as an interest in negotiating a new article defining use of technology. Much of their interest is in clarifying language, updating language to reflect current law, along with looking at some specific procedures and, of course, health and welfare and salary.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? No? Okay, so that, okay, at this time, it's 6:25, and I'm going to close the public hearing. Move on to 8.3. We're going to open up the public hearing at 6:25 regarding disclosure of session proposal from Santa Rita Union School District.
Thank you. So in return, our district has provided to our CSCA president our district sunshine. And we have requested to open the classified salary schedule to update to include all current classifications, as well as to review the evaluation form for classified employees and incorporate an additional evaluation form for classroom-based positions.
Any questions or comments from the board? From the public? No. Okay. We're going to close public hearing at 6:26, and then we're going to move to 9.1, which is approval of sunshine proposal from Santa Rita Union School District to CSEA chapter number 503 to open contract negotiations for successor agreements.
Motion to approve?
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Captain.
Motion 4-0.
Yeah.
And I do want to share that we have dates established already, so we're beginning to meet next week, although I personally won't be able to be at our first meeting, but I'll be joining following that. Of course, Claudia and Rosa will be there with our team.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us today. It was crazy. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So then we're going to go to 8.4.
Yes.
Information discussion, Santa Rita Union Elementary School mascot change.
Thank you. Our board asked for a brief information or presentation about the history of our current Santa Rita mascot, just to kind of start the conversation. Back in September 2024, Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 3074 into law. And that bill prohibits California public schools from using the term Indian as a mascot, team name, or a nickname. And it requires schools to retire the designation and to transition to culturally respective alternatives by July 1st, 2026. As many of you know, our students at Santa Rita Elementary School this fall have begun a research process into making suggestions for a new mascot that can be adopted. So our students who are in grades 3 through 5 have been working on research projects to align their suggestions for finalists that will come to the board at our first meeting in October for a new mascot. And I can tell you that Ms. Koenig and Ms. Zavala shared that students are really doing the work to identify a mascot that represents their school and community culture, as well as their core values and particularly their character counts pillars and those things, as well as their shared identity as students in a modern school setting. So more to come on this. So let's go backwards a little bit. So our Santa Rita Union School District, as many of you know, was founded officially in 1871. If you were here when I went through the whole thing of a sesquicentennial, made everybody learn that word, and we had a big celebration. And so just to kind of get us started is a recognition for our area of the indigenous origins here. And I'll put this presentation online and the links for people to go and look at some of those sources as well. So the indigenous peoples in the Salinas Valley, in particular, the Rumsen-speaking Ohlone, and that would include the Ensign community, lived in this region for thousands of years before Spanish contact. And it also included, and it's important to note because a lot of times there's some commingling there, of neighboring peoples that included the Amamutsan, the Esselen, and the Salinan peoples. So this map kind of gives an overview of Monterey Bay, and you can sort of see where we're located right at the midst of where some of those communities may overlap. Then we enter in California into what's known as the Spanish period in the mid 1700s to the early 1800s. In this area, that's dominated, of course, with the establishment of the Mission San Carlos Borromeo. And then that drew many of the local indigenous people into mission life. But for us and many of the surrounding areas that supported agricultural communities, a lot of families continue to live in those traditional homelands. So if you can click that link there for me. This is and make it as big as possible because it's kind of faint. It is a very old but hand-drawn map. Can you zoom in and showing the different in the Spanish land grants for the area, the designations. And so originally you can see Santa, I don't want to get up. It's like to the middle, to the right, you can see it's the Rancho Los Gatos or Santa Rita. And that's our particular area. And we're bordering the Espinosa larger rancho at that time. And so what we know is that a lot of those families who didn't go and join mission life, who stayed in the area to become workers at the ranch and lived and continued growing their families. And then we can just go to the next slide. So I wanted to give as many of the sources because there's so much information. I don't want to go too far into that because I'm a nerd like that. But and so then of course we enter into the Mexican period. So after independence from Spain, a lot of our indigenous peoples were then displaced from mission lands as those became more secularized by the Mexican government. And so they ended up remaining and then being incorporated back into those local ranch as laborers through intermarriage and of course in small dispersed communities in the Salinas Valley. We know that we have some folks who are descendants that of families that they can trace back to the original ranch. And then as we enter the American period in 1846, when the U.S. first annexed California and then went into statehood, our indigenous populations declined sharply. Disease, displacements, violence, and then the survivors of those remained in the area. And again, maintaining those small communities, incorporating themselves and their families into life on those ranches and in the local agricultural industries. So at the bottom, go back. So at the bottom, you have a couple of photos, and these are both, I want to point out the Salinas Public Library Archive has a huge collection of photos. And one of the caches of photos that are really significant for our Santa Rita area were donated by Miss Laverne Wilcox. And so that's known as her collection, though there are many families that and the Salinas Public Library gives you information about which family donated those photos. And if the photos, like back in the day when people would write information on the back of it, they do what they can to incorporate that in descriptions. So if you're ever interested in learning not just about Santa Rita, but the Salinas area as a whole, and going down that and into photographic information, that is an amazing archive of photos with the Salinas Public Library. My public service announcement. And so getting into the Santa Rita Indian as a mascot. So the idea of Santa Rita Indians has been in our community for nearly a century that we see via newspapers in particular. So a newspaper that existed from the late 1800s to the 1920s was the Salinas Daily Journal, where you might get a reporter talking about everybody he talked to on his drive through town. And so it was truly like a daily journal. And then the Salinas Californian in particular, starting in the early 1900s and going current, because the Salinas Californian eventually incorporates the daily journal. So early uses included in the late 1800s through the 1900s in the newspaper. We see that there was a group that identified themselves as the Santa Rita Indians, and they were associated with the Salinas Elks Club, and they would do novelty performances. And then shifting into the 1930s and 40s, You have the Santa Rita Indians adult baseball team, and that is another photo from Ms. Wilcox's collection with the Salinas Public Library. And if you go into the presentation and look and follow that link, he has a jersey on that says Santa Rita. And on the left is a list of names of who's in the photo. And so that they're a baseball team. The local baseball team would play neighboring teams. Sometimes they were like a business, but I know Castroville had the Castroville Giants, and so it was really like local teams, and they would put it in the sports pages in the Salinas, California newspaper. That picture there, Little Bear Creek, I put in, it's really interesting, the bridge that's over it. That's circa 1910. And they had had some flooding. I also looked at a whole bunch of pictures that had been taken around this time where we had heavy rains back then, and a lot of the same areas flooded that we experienced in the last couple of years. And then we'll go to the next one. So by the mid-century, you still see the local baseball team using the Santa Rita Indian mascot through the 40s. But in the 40s, you also see a transition over to the YMCA Friendly Indians. Now, this was actually a national program focused on father-son bonding, sort of like Boy Scouts. And so that was a youth program that they get a lot of mention of their activities in the local newspaper for fathers and sons, and they met at Santa Rita School. And there is another group like in Salinas and they have their own affiliation, and sometimes the groups would come together for larger events. But so that was a nationwide program. Later, that was rebranded started in the 70s in particular, as people felt that original brand was problematic. So they changed it to Adventure Guides, but keeping a lot of the same kind of structures in place to bring father and son bonding to the forefront. Then also in the 1950s, there's no official establishment or adoption date that can be identified in public records, but that's when you do start to see it used as like an official mascot that's associated with Santa Rita School. You start to see it oral histories where former students would say, no, I knew that, or our items said that we were the Santa Rita Indians. Then you start to see it in some local yearbooks, and then in newspapers, of course, in use as a school mascot. And then I just want to point out that so the name, the Santa Rita Indians, of course, reflected the community traditions of its time. And for us to recognize that it has been part of the school's identity for decades. And so there are many former students of Santa Rita who identify as a Santa Rita Indian with a very positive feeling, even though now we know that that's problematic and can create negative feelings for others. And so in being sensitive to that is kind of where we're at also. I put this photo on. This is, again, in that collection at this Salinas Public Library Archive. I just selected one of them. There's an incredible collection of aerial photos that were done, not just of Santa Rita, but then there are other areas around Salinas. So I am going to walk up because I am going to point out something. So this photo. Oh. Like I'm famous. Okay. This photo is 1953. And so back at the earlier photos, 1910, Santa Rita had been in what we think of as like a home, it looks like. So by 1953, Santa Rita is at the location that it currently exists at, but this school building has been replaced with the one that we use now. This is Main Street, also Highway 101 at the time. They were not separate. So this here is Main Street. This is Santa Rita Creek, which has now been put into boundaries and straightened out. So this area here is like a triangular wedge where there's still a home. This is what is going to become Boulevard all the way down to San Juan grade. So we know all of this is true because over here is where Mr. George Maddox, who is the father of Miss Becky Moore, lived. And he attended school in the 1950s here at Santa Rita Elementary. So part of our oral history also came from giving Mr. Maddox a call. So what Becky mentioned today when I showed her this photo, she said, wow, so when my grandparents said they used to have to travel into town, really make it a day, they really had to travel into town. So also in that area where I did point out where Mr. Maddox grew up is the very start of Russell Road. You see some homes that face this way, and that's actually the start of this road here. And you know where the farm area is there, that there's still a structure, and then we start to change those. That was mostly just for entertainment, and I thought it was a really interesting photo for us. So all of this to say, our students are working really hard at giving suggestions for what their future mascot should be. And in doing so, we are preparing to retire the current mascot. And the board considering whether or not we would like to have a plaque also to honor the past. Really highlighting the fact that we do live on lands here that our indigenous peoples inhabited long before anyone else came and explored and discovered it, as it were. So recognizing that, this is just a draft, a suggestion of something that we might do as part of our ceremony when we announce the new mascot at Santa Rita.
Okay. Questions or comments? Start off with the board.
I kind of find it ironic that I'm sitting here as an Indian American with Indian ethnicity from a country halfway around the world, having to debate changing our name, our mascot. Having said that, you know, I'm not for tearing down statues. I think history is history. I think we need to acknowledge it, both in its beauty and sometimes negativity. But as times move forward, you know, we cannot stop the pace of change and acknowledgement of negativity that has been thrust upon a certain ethnicity. So for me, you know, it's not like we're correcting a wrong, we're evolving. You know, I don't want to have any negative feelings towards all those people along the way who did use the mascot of Indians. But at the same time, you know, we evolve as humans, we evolve with understanding, we evolve with knowledge. So with that, you know, I'm glad that we are moving forward with the edict coming from the state. And I think the greatest joy for me is knowing that the new mascot will be created by the current students and the current community while acknowledging the past, but moving forward with a brighter, better day. So, you know, that's my position on it. And I'm just, you know, perplexed sometimes. But once again, this is history. This is time. This is evolution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Sure.
I have a request and it's a long-term request. I think it would be really helpful for our teachers of all grades if we could sort of assemble a district website with all of the local resources in the area that for teachers to have access to and different field trips that teachers can take students on to see the rich history that we have here. I mean, personally, I've taken students to see you know, along the ocean where there's holes there where you can still see where Native American people like mashed acorns, like hundreds of years ago. Like when you're hiking, you can see, oh, they sat out here, and Toro Park does, the nature center there does amazing um, information talking about local vegetables, like hunting, different things, obviously the um, the state parks in Monterey have amazing things, but it's just a lot of it as a teacher, I had to discover for myself. And I think it would be great if we had some centralized resources for people to know, hey, oh my gosh, I didn't know that that was right here to take the kids to. And there's also a lot of amazing nonprofits in the area that do um, that subsidize those field trips for that it's either free or they cost like 80% of the cost. So be able to say, oh gosh, I didn't know I could take the kids on a field trip to Carmel and have somebody else come in and pay for it. And we as a school district are committed to paying for field trips for our students, but it's also amazing to be able to stretch our money because we have these partnerships with all these other people. So, as when I taught fourth grade, which is California history, like I took my students on 5 different field trips that year just to be able to, people come from all over the world to see this. Like we should make sure that our kids who live here know these things.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, I was a student at Santa Rita School. I started off as a second grade with Ms. Rob, but I'm excited about the change. It's a long time coming, and excited to see what the students do. They're doing the research, excited to see what they bring forward and to new beginnings. So thank you for the presentation, and forward to the next item. 9.2. Thank you. Approval of the 2024-25 unaudited actuals background.
That is my item. I'm gonna go ahead and I emailed the presentation. Thank you so much. And do I have a clicker? Or can you guys switch the slides? You guys do it. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I just realized that my presentation has a bunch of numbers and I don't have any pictures or nice videos like Summer. Thank you, Summer. Always making me look bad.
One story.
So if you need coffee or water, please stay awake. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. We are gonna try to move quick. I know we're all.
That lets all those things happen.
I love the video though. That's one of my slides. I'm gonna reference back to it. All right, so we go in here into Fund One. So usually what I do is take the last board approved budget and compare it to our actuals. Again, this is the report where we finally close the books. We're not doing, and I have it right here in front of me. It's like over 200 pages that we need to work on. It's not a budget. These are the actual numbers, the actual money that we receive from the state, federal, and local. So I'm going to go over the differences between my last board approved budget and what we actually received. So I'll go over it just talking about the big differences. As you can see, LCFF, we end up with an increase. This is due to the final enrollment and final ADA. Again, we're still getting funded on the 3-year average. The difference is mainly due to the students that MCOE serve for us. When we got the final numbers, that increased or it made a change to our LCFF final funding. Our federal revenue increased. We got a last grant for about $40,000 for mental health, for SPED mental health. So we want to go ahead and move some expenditures, use that grant, spend it all out. We also got an increase on Title I for about $10,000 in there. And that reflects the with a total of over 53K more than what we budgeted. Now you're going to see a big difference here for other state income. This is due to the ELOP. There were funds that we received from 21, 22, 22, 23 when it was before we had opened the ELOP program. As you remember, we run the first full year of the ELOP on 24, 25. So these were funds that the state came this year on this apportionment that we received for the 24-25 and took that money back. Remember, we have in our books already a penalty as well that we did put an appeal. We asked for the status on several emails. So we're waiting to hear back from them. We're hoping that maybe we can get a waiver on the penalty. If that is the case, if we get good news and they said, yes, we're going to reduce the penalty or we're going to waive it, you are going to see that on the next budget or whenever that gets approved as a credit to that specific grant. So for now, those monies have been recuperated by the state. And then other local income, this was a little bit surprising. We get a quarterly interest rate on our overall funds. And depending on the market, how it goes, sometimes we get negative numbers if we don't have the cash in there, or we get positive interest. So on the last quarter, we got a little bit over $500,000. That's why there's a big increase of 1.1. This is something that I don't necessarily budget for. We are very conservative in regards to that. Again, the interest rate can go very, very low, like 200K. And in this case, it came in pretty high, meaning the interest rates were just pretty good at the county level, and we got a surplus there. In regards to salaries for certificated, classified, and benefits, you see savings in there. This is due to the vacancies that we have a year end. Also savings when we budget for extra hours or overtime. If they're not used, it creates a savings overall with the district. Books and supplies, sometimes we order items and departments, directors wait until the last minute and they start like, oh my God, I have money left. And then they start ordering supplies and items like that, which is okay. They're trying to spend their funds. Now, if for some reason the order gets delayed, like they were mentioning, there was a delay on the Chromebooks. And if the item arrived here as of July 1st, then it becomes on the next year budget already. So some of those got delayed. That's why you get you see a savings, not necessarily a savings, meaning that it's a savings this year, but we're reallocating those expenses for next year because they probably arrive after July 1st. Other services, that is mainly due to part of it. It was due to savings. We had set aside money for the Santa Rita Elementary roof repairs. So again, that project was for the summer. And again, any work that happens between June and July, we have to go in there and separate it by year. So you're going to see these differences on the other funds as well, because we said it's happening in the summer, but we don't know if it's happening in June or July. As you know, some of these construction projects got delayed, so they got pushed to July. That's why you're going to see not necessarily savings, but savings is this year and then reallocating it again on the following year. So overall, as you can see on the difference after revenue and expenses, 238,000 difference, and that is our ending fund balance, which is both unrestricted and restricted. As you know, restricted is already set aside, is restricted for specific purposes. I'm going to go to the next slide to go over the ending fund balance.
Before we go into the next slide,
unrestricted,
I know
yes.
you mentioned, I know there was unused funds we didn't use from the state, but did they actually charge us a penalty? Like where not only they took back funds that we didn't use, but they charged us something extra?
For the ELOP?
Yeah.
Yes. So there's two different things. There is the penalty for not having the program running on when they told us to run the program. And then the other part was, since we give you that funding, you didn't have a program, we're going to take that funding back. So there's two different ones. And that's what Summer and I were talking about it. We send emails. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
So Seth filled me in on that. I reached out to our state consultants at CDE because there seems to be some confusion. Your combined returning of unspent funds and your penalty should never exceed your allocation, right? So if you didn't spend X amount of dollars, your penalty should be based on that, and it should never exceed what you received from the state. Right now, there seems to be what they took doesn't match what they're telling us happened, and they acknowledge that. They said, when we spoke to our consultant, she said, yes, it should never exceed the amount that you were allocated. So they're working through, we've now had to send an email to like 3 additional people.
Sure.
But there is, so what could happen is if you have unexpended funds, you could still keep a portion of it. So if you were working your program, but you just didn't expend funds, you may not get a penalty, but they may take back those funds.
Of course.
If you did nothing in programming, you get both a return of funds and there's a penalty, but that penalty is part of those funds. Does that make sense?
So, what is the estimated fine. That
It's a
could be
calculation.
recoverable.
Yeah, so we send them the calculation. It's $4.4 million for the penalty. What they took this year was $3.7 million. So
So
all
the net would be,
so altogether it's like around $8.2 million that they're taking back.
but the the appeals for the penalty itself, right?
Yeah, so the appeal,
What's the estimate on that?
4 million, a little
4
over 4
million.
million.
So the allocation was, just so we can recap, so allocation was how much then?
so we had 3 different allocations. We had one for 21, 22, and then another one for 22, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25. So when they went out and said, we're gonna do the penalty, they're doing that on 23, 24, which it was last year, which it was already booked. It was done. I put it in the books, the auditor review it, and that is included in the books. The difference for this year, what that I was not expecting they were gonna take so soon, because I thought, like Summer said, it wasn't gonna exceed, it wasn't gonna be that big of a penalty. It was the unspent funds for those 3 years that we didn't have a program, which it was the $3.7 million that they came and took from our revenue this year. So now the question is, you took this much, we have this much of penalty. Altogether, seems like you guys are penalizing us too much for what we received. And those are the emails that are going back and forward. So we're waiting for a response. We're hoping that they can waive our penalty, because I know Summer attended 2 conferences saying that there is a chance that they can waive the penalty. We did have expenses in 23, 24. We, for just preliminary expenses to start and to run the program for 24, 25. So I send them all the proof and the calculator and the apportionments and all of it. We're waiting to hear back and see if there's gonna be a waiver. They did email me back and they said that the penalties, they're not gonna process those until 25, 26. So those are happening in 25, 26. And that's when we're gonna hear from them. So as soon as we hear a response back, we're gonna go ahead and update you with that. With that being said, the funds that we have right now, as we were closing the books, and the funds that we have left right now for this new year, we're not deficit spending. We still have a surplus. We are doing good in budgeting. We're not worried about that, but we would like to get that extra funding if we can.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
I would really
I'm still kind of
appreciate
just confused on the amounts. Just want to clarify, just make sure. So 3.7 was the unspent funds,
Mhm.
right? So obviously,
21, 22, 20.
You want to know the dollar amount? So for
But-
21,
yeah.
22, it was around $1.2 million.
no, I'm
For
saying the full amount though. You know, yeah, the summary amount was about 3.7 is what you're saying?
Yeah, the
Okay.
funds that they took back.
Yeah, and just so I clarify, and since we didn't spend those 3.7, the way I hear it, I could be wrong. That's why I want
Yeah.
to clarify. Because we didn't spend the 3.7, are they penalizing an additional 4.1?
No,
total?
there's
Okay, that's what I
no
wanted to
additional-
clarify.
no.
Okay.
Mhm.
So can you clarify? Yeah, okay.
Yes, so last year, it was the first 23, 24 when we closed the books. Even though the state didn't took any penalties, they said you are required to book in your actuals the penalty based on the number of days that you were opened for the ELOP program. So when we entered the days in the calculator, I sent it to the auditor. I said, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm closing the books. This is the days that we were open. Please review it. I'm booking $4 million. He reviewed it. He said, it's fine. It's good. It's good to go. So I went, go ahead and did that. Now, in this year, because after I do this presentation, then the auditor comes again and then they review my numbers. It goes to the county office. When the auditor came again last year, he said, there was something new in the calculation that we forgot to add. So there's like an additional 400K that you need to book. Those 400K are part of this, a part of this booking of 24, 25. So is the 3.7 plus the 400 and something that was left from the other penalty,
Okay, so potentially the penalty is ballpark 400,000?
4.4.
Huh?
$4.4 million.
Okay,
The
which
penalty, just the penalty.
that includes the unused funds?
No.
No,
It's
okay, that's why
separate.
that's why.
That's the part that
Okay,
isn't, that from everything we've heard and from my conversations with the state director of ELOP, is wrong. So when
Oh.
Rosa got the initial, so when they took out the unspent funds, that was
3.7.
3.7. When Rosa reached out to them and said, is that inclusive of the penalty? They said, no, we haven't taken out the penalties yet. We're not doing that till 25, 26. That's when she talked to me and I said, that can't be right. They can't, because it cannot be greater than the allocation that we received. Pulled that information up, showed that it can't be greater. This would be greater than our allocation that we
That's what I'm saying.
received.
So they're trying to say that our penalty is $4.3 million
Correct.
and they gave us 3.7. So they want to.
So what I reached out to our state consultant to say, based on this, what Rosa received back that says no penalties have not yet been taken, are what you're saying is you're going to take out the penalties from this 3 blah, blah, blah that you already took and then return to us whatever the penalty isn't. But then that doesn't seem like enough. And she said, she reiterated, your total amount returned and penalty cannot be more than your allocation. And I said, but right now, because you're saying you're not taking out the penalties, we've used the penalty calculator, this is the penalty, but you've already taken out these funds, that would be substantially more than our allocation. And she said, I agree, that's incorrect. You need to send the information to these folks. At the same time, we said we filed an appeal because, as you know, Madonna and I came in and took over ELOP 23, the summer of 23, 24. Yeah. And so when we came in at that time, we tried to book as much as we could in June to show that service had been rendered. So when I met with Michael Funk, who's the state director of ELOP, I said, I understand that program hadn't been started there for whatever reasons. Sure. We've started program. Here's where we are to move forward. He said, file the appeal. You know, we're reading through the appeals, and we were told, like, yes, that's been almost a year since we filed the appeal without that response. So we're predicting two things. One, that our appeal will be approved. And two, that the amount that we're looking at with penalties and what they've already taken will not be anywhere close to what we have to put into the books right now, because until we get that confirmation from them, we have to assume that that's what it is, knowing that based on regulation, it can't be that.
Sure. Right now in the books, for example, with these, you're only calculating the 3.7 currently?
The 4.346.
It's because it summarizes all the state income for ELOP, is the $3.7 million, the 400 of additional penalty that got left last year. And that's for this year. Overall, between last year and this year, everything is in the books. As of now, everything is the unspent funds and the penalty, which it would be the worst scenario. In case the state comes back and say, here, we're going to waive the penalty and all of that, then we have backup that we can use and say, hey, we're going to get this money back, and we can keep the money because they haven't taken the penalty. We can put that as a part of our revenue. Right now, the penalty is put into account as a payable, saying that's not our money. We're not going to touch it because the state is going to take it, which is the worst scenario, which is the information in the backup that I have, which is the emails that I have saying, like, yeah, they still have to review the penalty. Yeah, the 3.7 is correct. That's the money that they were supposed to be taking. So based on my backup documentation, the emails from CDE, I'm doing and booking based on that backup. And again, if the state comes back and say, we're going to give you a waiver, or we're going to adjust the penalty because, yeah, it is too much of what you receive, then we can go ahead and credit on the 25, 26.
So 3.7 has already been taken out.
Yes.
But not the penalties yet, because the penalties
Which
are
is
gonna be
the difference between the 4.3.
correct.
Okay. now I
So
got it.
that's why you're not seeing that here yet, right? So in the next one is where you'll see the penalties, right? In 25, 26. because
Yeah. So like I said, the
that's why it's not
penalties.
here. This is because they only have taken out the unspent funds so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then she's booking the penalties in 25, 26. So you'll see that on the next one.
Okay.
So the penalties they were part of last year. Like I mentioned, they're part of last year. Whenever the state is gonna take money out, but they haven't really come out and actually take the cash, we have to do an accounting transaction and put it into the accounts payable. It's pretty much putting the account aside where we're not gonna see it in the books and say this, we're gonna pay for it, but it's not available there for us to use. So right now the penalty is into a special account where we don't see it here, where it's like we're gonna pay for it. So it's not part of this revenue. It's not part of this, the
Okay.
penalty. it's confusing. So
Yeah.
I
No, I just
thank
wanted
you
to
for
clarify, yeah.
for the question because it was confusing. I mean, we were like working on it, and I mean, I do this
Okay,
all the
thank you.
time. So, great questions. We were gonna go to the next one. Okay, thank you. So after closing the books, part of our unrestricted ending fund balance, we have our 17% reserves. We put aside some money for, as you know, we have one-time funds that are gonna be expiring on 25, 26. So we go ahead and put some money aside for that. We have some prior year LCAP ending fund balance. And then we set aside some money for the increases for special ed. As you know, they're increasing significantly every year. And then, as you know, we are getting cash deferrals this year, 25, 26, for the month of, in our LCFF apportionment in the month of June, which is about $3.6 million around there. The amount is going to be recalculated as we get final enrollment numbers for 25, 26. Go to the next one. So this is our ASB. Not much difference there. We got last deposits towards the end of the year. As you know, these are the account that the school sites use whenever they do fundraising to do events like movie nights. Sometimes they do potato sales where they get tickets, and they do events for their students, like field trips. They go to Great America. They do student incentives, or events for promotion, or music activities, or bowling trips and stuff like that. So not a lot of changes there. We can move to the next one. This is our cafeteria fund. We end up with a surplus in our total revenues, more than what we were expecting. And as you can see on classified salaries, we did spend a little bit more in the last budget. It wasn't reflected, left out the one-time payment that it was sketched to be paid for our classified employees as part of negotiations. It was included on the prior budget. Somehow it got left off. So that's why it seems like we spent more of what we budgeted. Some savings on, I know it says books and supplies, but it's really food purchases that we do. So some savings in there, as well as other services. Sometimes we have contract services as well that we plan to do it towards the end of the year. Sometimes we don't end up doing it until the next year. So we see overall savings. Overall, we still have a surplus of 890,000, and our ending fund balance is increasing every year. As you know, there was a big shift of funding. Now, the different way that we get funded versus the participation. Now we get funded for all of our students, so which is great, and it's going very good for this fund. We can move to the next one. So this is the fund that we set aside for the beautification of the district. They did projects for just to improve the school district's appeal. They did the GV paving, painting. They did a lot of patching. They removed all equipment. They also paid classified hourly to work on those assignments. Everything everything was in-house, or most of it was in-house. We had some savings on, most of that was overtime, extra hours for employees. So those not necessarily, again, a lot of those were summer projects. So those are gonna be moved to the following year. So they already used some of those hours in July and August. So you're gonna see that on the next budget. So overall, we still had an end up balance of 62,000, which again is gonna be rolled forward to the 25, 26, and they're gonna keep using it to maintain our schools and the beautification projects. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide. Pretty straightforward. Local income, it's pretty much interest that we received, and then we have some expenses in here. Remember, this is Fund 21. It is, yeah. So this one, it's pretty much the video that Summer was showing. It is the expenditures for the shade structures, 2 over school sites, the additional portables a La Jolla, the Santa Rita restroom, and demolition for GV, as well as preliminary work for the 11 classroom and 1 flex lab for GV. You saw the video. There's some construction going on. We got the play structures as well. And there was also preliminary work for the 6 modular classrooms and garden relocation for JG, sorry. And the difference that you see there for the $2.3 million, again, this was some projects that most of it happened during the year, but then some of the work was going to happen during the summer. The big difference there was the JG portables that were going to happen during the summer. We didn't get them before June, so that got moved to the next year. And also part of the construction work that got also moved for next year. Overall, we're rolling that Fund 21 to the next year. Fund 21, that one's pretty straightforward. This is the funds that we receive from developer fees. That's the actual money that we received, $72,325. Not a lot of expenses there. We still have an ending fund balance. Those are funds that we can, in prior years, it was very low, this fund. So we didn't have anything big expenditures there. As we roll forward on the new year, this is something that can also be utilized for our schools facilities as well. So we can move to the next fund. So this is Fund 35, and as you remember, this is where we purchase or Sobrana land purchase, and there's some other expenditures that we had for initial fees like testing and architect fees. And we spend most of the funds in there. We still have an ending fund balance in there, but again, that was set aside specifically for the purchase. Pretty much the funds that we have there is basically keeping the money there to make sure that we don't get charged any negative interest. We can go to the next slide. And no activity here on the expenses. Revenue side is only interest that we earned this year. And we end up with an ending fund balance of $2.6 million. And we can move to the next one. Oh, this is the GAN limit, and it's part of the of this unaudited actuals report. This is a form that we have a board resolution, which you're gonna see coming forward, and it's pretty much a form. It does a calculation once we put all of the numbers in here. This is to make sure that based on the ADA that we have for our district, based on the revenue that we have, and inflation, and it does all these calculations to make sure that we're not overspending, or what they call it, that we're not like government waste spending. So it's just like a calculation that we have to do. We pass the test. We are not overspending based on the ADA and the revenue and all of that. So we are in compliance. Just wanted to talk about it because it's coming up in one of my action items. And it's part of the unaudited actuals forms. So we can go ahead and move to the next one. Fund 51, this is part of the county treasury. This is where we keep the bond funds. Form A, funded ADA. I think the interesting form here is gonna be Form CEA, which is how much did we spend on classroom compensation, which is pretty much on teacher salaries, most of it. We are off. We needed to be a 60%. I do have a form here, a waiver. And I know this is a problem. Everything was in compliance, but this is on my part of my TRC. And this is happening all over the state. Is, as you know, you probably heard, it is a problem that a lot of districts is having. So we have the waivers pretty much showing that based on where we're located, and we need to compare other districts that are in our same area or have the same ADA to ensure that our salaries for teachers are and benefits are competitive. So I do have the backup, the paperwork here for your review, and I'm gonna submit it with my report to the county. We are not the lowest. We are offering competitive salaries. So last year I did the same and it got approved. And you might question like why a lot of districts are having such a big trouble with the form. And as you know, the forms that we do here for the state, they don't get updated often. So back in the days where schools only had their biggest expense was teacher salaries, obviously 60%, it would make sense that they would spend it out of their total budget. But now things have changed. Now, especially now after COVID, we're not only paying for teacher salaries, we're paying for mental health services. We have nurses, we have health aides, we have counselors, we have other services for safety, like this last year, resource officer. We have construction. Like again, we have safety. We have so much that we're offering and that we're doing for our students that now the percentage of the teacher salary might look smaller. It is not necessarily that it's smaller. It is that we have all these other expenses that it looks like we're spending less. It not necessarily the case. Like I said, we do have a waiver. So just to keep something in mind is that there has been a shift and there's so many other expenses that we have, not only teachers. And that's one of the main reasons why not only our district, but statewide, they're having such a hard time meeting that percentage.
It pretty much is an outdated calculation, but nobody's taken the time to really
So
adjust it or update it.
prime example of governmental red tape, that entire list.
Yeah.
So they do need to update. I mean, like I said, after COVID, we had so much of that one-time funds. Everything, it was restricted and it was like, you get so many millions of dollars, but you can only use it on, for example, COVID testing or health items and things like that. And now it seems like when you take, because this calculation, you take your overall expenditures, and out of all your expenditures, you're going to take the percentage of your teacher salaries, and it looks like it's small, but you have all these other expenses that you're covering. Before, we didn't have so much counseling, so much health, mental health, construction, like safety, all of those additional expenses they're not taking into
The
consideration.
goal of the legislation was good in terms of you wanted to spend your money directly on kids, but a more reasonable update now would be your lunch staff should count as part of it. Your psychologist should count as part of it. Your yard duty should count as part of it. Your teacher librarian should count, basically everybody who's providing your custodian, anybody who's providing direct service to a child should be included in what we're spending our money on.
That's right. That's
Okay.
correct.
Perfect.
Thank you. That's all for me today.
Okay. Any final questions? No? Can I get a motion to, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Going back to the first slide. Even despite all the changes or penalties, we were within what, less than 1% of projections? I think that's pretty good. It's amazing. Despite what I'm hearing, with the penalty from the state, when I go back to that very first slide, when I look at the net difference between actuals and estimated, we're less than, I think, what, 0.08%, I'm sorry, 0.8% difference out of a $60 million budget. We came down over, what, 351,000? So, great projections, great conservative estimates. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, Captain.
Motion
And
4-0.
huge appreciation, Rosa, of you personally and your staff in general. Thank you.
Okay. Item 9.3, approval resolution number 25.09.16 regarding the Proposition 4 GAN amendment for the 2024-25 and the projected 25-26 fiscal year.
Since we just discussed this, motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Captain.
Motion 4-0.
With a note to the state, please adjust as appropriate.
Okay. 9.4, approval of contract with speech therapy link for licensed vocational nurse.
Thank you. This is Melanie's item. I told her one of us would represent her. So this contract is for a licensed vocational nurse who will provide dedicated health services to multiple students with some complex and intensive medical needs. And so they'll be here to deliver those healthcare interventions for those designated students.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
So motion?
Yeah,
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Kevin.
Motion 4-0.
Okay, item 9.5, approval of Career Catalyst Worksite Agreement with Chef and Foundation.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, so am I. Well, I forgot to mention in my report earlier today or tonight that I think we are the only and first in Salinas to be partnering with Chef Ann. There are like North County and Gonzales and maybe MPUSD, but in Salinas, we're the only ones. So this document is just an agreement for those staff members or external participants to get paid through the Career Catalyst. So not a cost to us. If they don't do extra hours in our district, we can pay them or the Career Catalyst can. And there's a max that they can work.
Thank you. And thank you for all the extra work that you put into and providing the best for our students. I really appreciate it. Motion to approve.
You get a second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Captain.
Motion
Great work.
4-0.
Great work.
Our next regular board meeting will be October 8th, 2025. Any suggested future board items? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn at 7:21?
Some, I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Motion
Aye.
4-0.
Okay, have a nice evening, everyone.